Hi, welcome to Glow's Kindred Kitchen, and I'm Glow. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And all of our new subscribers, welcome. And our old subscribers that have been with us for a while now, we really appreciate all of you. So anyway, let's just go ahead and get started. Today I wanted to share with you a recipe that I have made for many years, and I call it sweet and sour meatballs. And I do it a little bit different at times, but I'm gonna try and put this down, what's in my head, for all of you. It is delicious. And so let's just go ahead and we'll start in on it. When I make meatballs, I usually do ground chuck and also pork. And I have just under 2 pounds total here. And the first thing I'm gonna do though is I cook my onion in my pan first, and I saute it. I'm going to put some olive oil in here, about 1.5 tablespoons probably, that is. And my pan's hot. You can probably see it where it's the sheen is on the oil already. And then I'm just going to, I turned my heat up to medium, and I'm like, yeah, you can hear that. So what I have in here is I cut up cabbage real fine like this. You're probably thinking, cabbage and meatballs? Yes, it's delicious. And I have 1 small onion. So there's probably about 1/2 cup of the cabbage and then the 1 small onion, which was probably 3/4 cup. So while that's sauteing, we'll go ahead and start in on the next ingredients. I'm just stirring this around so it all gets coated with that oil. The reason I'm starting this first is because I want this to cool down before I put it with my meat. So the next thing I'm going to do, move this out of the way, is I put gelatin in my ground beef and pork when I'm going to be making meatballs or meatloaf. The reason I use this, I got this tip from America's Test Kitchen. They were saying that the gelatin will take on what veal does as far as making your meat more velvety, because that's what veal does. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put in kind of a heaping teaspoon of plain gelatin. And this is milk in here, probably between 1/8 and 1/4 cup. And I'm just going to let that set on top there. And what that's going to do is that's going to go ahead and soften so we can add it to our meat. And I have 1 beaten egg here that I'll be adding to this. And then sometimes I do like saltine crackers, sometimes I do breadcrumbs, but today I decided to do oatmeal. Now with that being said, what I did is I coarsely ground my oatmeal. I have the old-fashioned oats, and so this is more like a coarse flour, if you will. So I'm going to just go ahead and put that in here. That's about 3/4 cup. We may need more, and that's okay because I keep it in a jar, and I use it quite often, and it works great. So let's go ahead and check our cabbage and our onion here. Smelling good.
Yes, it is.
And this will take on a different flavor than if you put this in to your meat raw. It'll sweeten it up a little. The cabbage and the onion both do that. So the other ingredients I have here is 1 cup of whole milk. And then I've got marjoram, I have thyme, I have nutmeg, I have garlic powder, and I have some onion powder. And that's about it that's going to go in here. So it's a fairly simple recipe. So I'm going to go ahead and put my egg in here. And I'll put thyme in it, probably like 1/2 teaspoon. That's about 1/2 teaspoon. And I'm just going to rub that in my hand. And the reason I'm doing that is to kind of waken that spice up. And I've got marjoram. There. That's about a half a teaspoon also. You don't want any of these spices to overpower this, because the sauce we're going to have on this, that's kind of, you want your meatballs to be the star along with that sauce. You don't want these spices to overtake that. The other thing I'm going to put in here is nutmeg. And let's just do that. That is plenty. That's probably like a 1/16 of a teaspoon. And nutmeg is one of those that will definitely overpower if you let it. And I'm going to put some onion powder. That's plenty. That's probably like between an 1/8 and a 1/4 of a teaspoon. And some garlic powder.
How much is that, Miss Chloe?
Maybe an 1/8 of a teaspoon.
Okay.
So I'm going to let this just cook here a little bit longer, and it's going to have to cool also before we continue on. So I'll be back probably in about 5 minutes, and we'll put these meatballs together. Well, our cabbage and our onion here has sauteed nicely. It started to brown a little bit in places, and that's what you want. You want it to be a little translucent, and if you will, limp, and it's cooled. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in here. The reason I'm using such a large pan is I'm one of those that less pans the better, less dishes the better. I'm going to use this same pot for when I do my sauce.
Good idea.
So now when I was waiting for this to cool off, I was looking at my meat and I thought, no, that wasn't too smart of me, because my rule of thumb, at least for me, is when I'm making meatballs or meatloaf or whatever, I usually use 1 egg for each pound of meat. Well, I've got close to 2 pounds here, so it's like, what am I doing just putting 1 egg? So I'm going to put 2. So there's the second one.
I'm glad you figured that out, Miss Chloe.
I am too. Now I wanted to show you, see how this gelatin, how it went across that milk and it softened right up. See how nice that is now?
Yep.
And again, this is to make this so it's a lot more velvety. Your meatballs and your meatloaf, you will find it just really ups it and makes it so nice. There we go. See if I can get some gelatin off. My hands are clean, by the way. I always keep a sink of warm, sudsy water, too. It helps a lot. Now, I'm going to add some salt and pepper. This is pepper, about a half a teaspoon. And salt, it'll probably be closer to a teaspoon, right about there.
Himalayan pink, is that what that is?
Yeah, you can use any salt you have, though, on hand.
Fine.
So I'm going to go ahead and just start working this in. Now this I'm using here today is called a Dutch or a Danish whisk. I love this item. It really helps with mixing up things so you don't get your hands quite so messy. I did take my ring off. When you're working with stuff like this or dough or anything, if you can, remember to keep your rings off of your fingers. It'll help a lot. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of mixing this up a little. Now I'm going to pour some of this milk on. Let's start with about a half a cup. That's right about half a cup right there. So mix this up. I've got my oven preheating to 350 degrees. But see how this is coming together so nicely with this whisk?
Looks good, Miss Chloe.
It really does. Helps a lot. Add a little bit more. Because remember, those oats are going to absorb some of this liquid. There, look at that. What I'm doing right now is just making sure that all the meat has been combined real well with the other ingredients. Now, it appears like it has. Look at that.
So far, so good?
Yeah. So, I'm going to move this pan out of the way. I've got this pan here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a little bit of olive oil. And this is not the extra virgin. This is like, you know, for cooking.
Saute.
It's the sauteing olive oil. So what I'm going to do is I have a little bowl here of just some water, just some cool water. When you're working with meat, the best thing to do is have your hands wet. That way it won't stick so much to your hand. There, look at that. And I usually do them about the size of a golf ball. Now, if you were going to do this as an appetizer, which you could easily do, what were you saying, Richard?
It's a big golf ball.
That's a big golf ball?
A little bit big.
Oh, well, that's the size I do.
That's okay with me.
Yeah, I don't know.
They taste good. I don't care if they're a golf ball size.
I'm not a golfer, so. Well, let's do another one. And you can also use a meatball scooper, which I do have. But I wanted to show you how to do this so that you see that when you're using the water technique, it doesn't stick to your hands.
That's a
That
good
one's
idea.
a little bit big. You can also use a cookie scoop. That works really good too. But I'm going to go ahead and continue with this, and once I get these all ready to go into the oven, I have my oven preheating to 375 degrees, and then we'll be putting those in there to bake for a little bit. Well, I got all these meatballs put together, and Richard, you're right. These are, I guess, a little bit bigger than a golf ball. I have 21 of them here,
At least
though.
the golf balls I own.
And would you say these are about 1.5 inches in diameter?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
maybe 2 inches.
I got 21 meatballs. Now you're probably thinking, well, that's not the same dish she had in the beginning when she was doing this, and you're right. I realized that I was going to have more than I could fit in that pan. So I went ahead and pulled this out. This pan here I use all the time for stuff like this and also roasting vegetables. So I upped the temperature also on my oven to 400 degrees. When I'm using a glass dish, I always reduce the temperature by about 25 degrees. So I upped it, and I'm going to put these in, and it'll be a good half hour before they're ready. So in the meantime, I'll be back just as soon as I clean up my workstation a little bit here, and we're going to make the sauce together.
Okay.
All right, well, now it's time to make the sauce together. So I got my pan warming up again on medium, and I'm going to put some more of this olive oil in here. Remember, this is the sauteing type olive oil.
Right, yes.
And I'm going to add the cabbage and the onion. And again, it's 1 small onion and probably between 1/2 and 3/4 of a cup of the cabbage. So this is going to have to saute for a little bit here. In the meantime, let's talk about the other ingredients that are going to go in this. It's very simple. So I usually put in this is a quart jar. And I'll be putting that in there. And this is home canned tomatoes. And this one looks like it probably has a little bit more juice in it than the tomatoes, and that'll be fine for this. I put in some red pepper flakes to give a little bit of spice to it. I put in red wine vinegar, and I'm going to start with 1/4 cup, and we'll sample it together, and we'll see if we're going to need more. I put in sugar, and I'll start with a tablespoon, and we'll go from there. It depends on your tomatoes, how sweet they are. This canning of tomatoes, they were pretty sweet. So that's why I wanted to, because they were super ripe when I did them. You can tell by the color. They're just beautiful. But I'll start off with 1 tablespoon and then we'll go from there. A little bit of salt and a little bit of teriyaki sauce and a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. And that's it. So this is still going to saute. So I'll be back in about 5 minutes and then we're going to go on to the next step.
Sounds good, Miss Chloe.
Well, we're back and this has been busy sauteing for about 5 minutes and you can see where it's even starting to brown, and that's fine. That's our friend because it's just going to give us some more added flavor. So now I'm going to open up my jar and you hear that click? When you hear that click on something like this, like home canning, you know that your seal is still good.
The big click.
Yep, makes you feel good after you put all that work into it. So, see how beautiful those tomatoes are?
Yes, they do look yummy, as you say.
Yeah, there's nothing like home canned tomatoes. So I'm going to turn my heat up just a little bit. I've got it on medium low right now. Oh yeah, that's going to be really good. So I'm going to add the vinegar, 1/4 cup. Make sure it's
Let me see the
1/4 cup. Yeah.
Definitely a 1/4.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to pour that in. This is red wine vinegar. We're going to put in the 1 tablespoon of sugar. We'll start with like a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. That's about a 1/2. Just a little bit of the Worcestershire sauce. That's like just a little bit of a dash. And the same with the teriyaki sauce, not much. But all of this will enhance. And a few dashes of the red pepper flakes. And if you don't want the heat to it, don't put that in. But this doesn't have much heat at all with the amount that I put in. So now we're just going to let this simmer here. And I'll probably let it simmer for about an hour. And it'll thicken up a little as it's simmering. You can let this simmer longer if you wanted. I'm going to be serving this tonight with the meatballs, with the sauce, and then also some mashed potatoes, and I'm going to be steaming some cabbage to go on the side as well. So I'll be back in a bit. Hi, well, I thought I'd show you. These have been now in the oven for about 1/2 hour. And I'm going to flip them so that they brown, because see how that one is already browned on the bottom?
Yep.
So I'm going to go along and flip all of these. Look how beautiful they are. And that way, they're already starting to brown on top, but this will just help. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to do this, and then they'll probably be in the oven for an additional 5 to 10 minutes. So I'll be back to show you what they look like at the end. Well, we're back. The meatballs were in there another 5 minutes. So let's just flip them over here, and you guys can see, here's one. See how it was starting to brown on top? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of these meatballs down in this casserole dish. Then I'm going to be putting sauce over this, over the meatballs, and we're going to bake this in the oven for a while. That way the meatballs get that sauce swimming with it. And it's just really a delicious dish. I won't be using all these meatballs today. So the ones that I have left over, I'm going to freeze for another meal. But I'm going to continue to do this, and I'll be back and I'll show you what it looks like before we put it in the oven. Well, I put in 10 meatballs into this casserole dish, and then I covered them with the sauce. I think I'll put a little bit more sauce in because I see a couple of them here popping up saying hello. This sauce is going to reduce some anyway when it's in the oven. And I selected this dish with this lid because I'm going to do it ajar so that if you can see here how this fits,
Well,
there's like a vent.
Yeah, it's a vent.
Yeah, so that will help the sauce reduce a little. I'm turning my oven down to 300 degrees because I want this to be low and slow. It'll probably take a good hour. But anyway, we'll be back. And this is also another great dish to do in your crock pot at this point as well. We'll see you back. Well, now is the best time of the whole thing, is the taste test. Look at this, you guys.
Looks good to me.
Doesn't that look delicious? Let me remove that.
Scrumptious. Scrumptiously delicious.
We've been looking forward to this all afternoon. Oh, it smells so good. You can smell that red wine vinegar in there with those tomatoes and that little bit of seasoning. Such a treat. Oh, those meatballs. They are so velvety and tender. This is delicious. Absolutely delicious. And here's some cabbage that I steamed. I put a little olive oil on it, a little bit of nutmeg. And salt. This all goes so well together. And then our little side salad that I made with the broccoli and the pears and the cranberries. So good. Very healthy meal. Wish you guys were here to have dinner with us. But anyway, I do need to share with you, I did totally, for the sauce, I did add some more sugar, so it was a total of 2.5 tablespoons. But that was the only thing extra that I added. And I did reserve my potato water, just in case I needed to, put more liquid into my sauce. But as of right now, I don't need to do that. But that's just a tip. Share your potato, or not share, but save your potato water. You may need it during the week even, like for soups or gravies. It's a great way to reserve stuff, and it has all those nutrients in it as well. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this and have liked it and learned from it. And again, thank you for joining us. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do. We'll talk to you later. Bye.